And also one more, and I was especially sorry to hear about this because I just talked to him literally 3 weeks before he passed away, Bert Prentice, who some might know as Queen Christopher Love from the LPWA and Memphis at one point in time. And I think he started out as Christopher Love managing Tully Blanchard in San Antonio, didn't he?
In Southwest, Christopher Honeylove.
Well, that's because that was his expression. Well, let me tell you something, honey, with that indignant sound in his voice. Let me tell you something, honey. Oh, he was fucking hilarious as a manager. And Bert's another guy that a lot of modern fans may not know his name, but in the Tennessee area and around the Southeast in wrestling, he's been a promoter in a variety of places for years and years, and he managed before that. He's always been around wrestling in some fashion or another. And he's got, as a matter of fact, he had worked on a book with Scott Teal that was going to come out. I don't know now what the status of it is, but I remember he's got a bizarre life story where his family came from working in carnivals and wrestling and different types of traveling attractions. And he was just a natural old time promoter, a carny in the best sense of the word in some cases, because he knew how to hustle and promote. And sometimes he'd start a territory and he'd have 12 or 14 guys in the territory, and all of a sudden they'd turn around and Bert was gone and nobody saw him for a couple of years. But that's part of the wrestling promotion business at the grassroots level. I met him the first time when I did the LPWA. Joe Pedicino had asked me to come out and do color. He was doing the play-by-play for old Tor Berg out of Minneapolis. And Queen Christopher Love was the manager of the Queens of Wrestling, who were Leilani Kai and Judy Martin.
The Glamour Girls, yeah.
The Glamour Girls. And we were taping not in Las Vegas, but in Laughlin, Nevada. I guarantee if you ever want to find some place where you just look around the entire town and say every one of these motherfuckers voted for Donald Trump, Laughlin, Nevada. It was the redneckest backwoods. Well, they don't have woods. It's out in the desert. The redneckest, back desertish, low income, fucking the people going to the casino more for the buffet than to gamble type of thing. And so they're doing a girl wrestling show, but here comes Queen Christopher Love, and he's gay as a fucking $4 bill, and he's wearing furs, and he's doing his thing, and he's got no guys that can protect him, right? It's Leilani Kai and Judy Martin. Now, they could probably whip the average guy in Laughlin, Nevada, but it wasn't an intimidating visual presence, right? So he goes out and does his shit. I can't remember what they did at ringside. He said some shit on a microphone, and by the time he got halfway down the aisle to go back to the dressing room, one of these rednecks had come out and clocked him right in the fucking face. And boom, and I saw a stir from ringside, and what the fuck? Oh, somebody's got Chris Love. Oh, shit. And I'm assuming, I can't remember, but I think it was, I didn't check their credentials, but the security was more like casino security guards rather than actual police, right? And they're used to these fucking people, and probably 67 years old, augmenting their Social Security. And I told Joe, I said, hold on, I'll be right back. And I went back in the back, and Bert told me years later that he really appreciated this. Because I went back in the back, I said, hey, I know we're just all fun in here, and it's a girl show. I said, but you're going to send this fucking guy out in this fucking crowd to get that much heat, then give him some fucking cops or some security so he doesn't get punched in the face every time he walks out there. Because as a fellow manager, I was offended, right? As a professional courtesy. And so they got everybody they could in that casino that looked official and surrounded him to go back and forth from that point on out. But Bert was promoting Music City Wrestling when I first got here to OVW, and he was doing a great job getting people back in the Nashville Fairgrounds. And he would book some of the OVW guys. I mean, here's a mixed match. I say a mixed match. You'll see why in a second. But a mixed match that will live in infamy was me and David Flair against, I think it was Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher. And then we had Leviathan down there in some way or another. I think I can't remember whether I teamed up with Leviathan against somebody else, but he was putting together all kinds of crazy fucking matches and drawing good crowds. And then TNA came along and started running the same building, the Nashville Fairgrounds, and giving the tickets away for free and killed his fucking town. He had local TV. I'd done color for it at some points. He was bringing in, Lawler always worked with him. He and Lawler were good friends. But he was bringing in names and he was drawing.
Didn't he have Christine Jarrett working the door for his shows?
Yes, Christine was still alive the first time that he started running Music City. She was working to get out of the house, and the fans loved seeing her and to be back in the same ticket window she worked for 15 years or whatever at that building. So she would come down and sell tickets for him. And it was a family thing. And he knew all the people by name at ringside, and he'd point them out and he'd make over them. And he was running regularly and drawing crowds of, I don't know, 500, 700, 1,000 people sometimes. And then TNA started giving all their tickets away. And then I've recently talked about him. We had him on the program several years ago, but he started running Jackson, Tennessee. And I talked at the time about how it was the model again of a local promotion, because he didn't just go in there and try to book indie darlings that he had to fly in and put, ads on the internet. He went into the Jackson Coliseum, which is a miniature Mid-South Coliseum. It seats like 6,000 instead of, 12 for the Coliseum. And Jarrett had run that building every month for years. Same place, but he contacted the city because it's a city-owned building. And the city in Jackson, Tennessee also owns or operates the cable system in some fashion. So they needed events in the building. And obviously it's revenue for the city. So he got a deal where he got a TV show on the local cable system that they could shoot in the basement of the Jackson Coliseum in this big room they could put a ring in. They put the TV on for him, and he used that to promote the big shows he'd run every couple of months upstairs in the regular Coliseum. And he brought in Jerry Lawler against Terry Funk the last time that they worked. I went down there to see it, and he drew like 1,200 people. And he did Lawler and Dundee. And this was in 2016. He did Jerry Lawler versus Bill Dundee. It did almost 1,500 people. And then he started running spot shows because the majority of the card were the local guys, the Tennessee guys, the guys that either are coming up, needed experience, or just live around there and wanted a decent payoff. They're working part-time, whatever. And then he'd bring some names in. So he was actually the independent promoter that was regularly running the biggest arena in the country. We're talking about running that Jackson Coliseum 4, 5, 6 times a year. So he just knew how to hustle and promote and get people interested in things. It's classic old-time grassroots, carny promoting, wrestling promoting. Bert was just a great guy. To me, I never had any problems with him. I know that in the past, in some cases, people had missed him and their money along with it, but he had reformed to some extent also. And you've got a story. You had a story with
well, there's something coming up, not to spoil anything.
Don't spoil anything. I didn't know whether it aired yet or not.
Not to go too deep into my plug, but on the next 605, there is a story, a follow-up to a popular story from the past from Howard Baum about his interactions with Bert Prentice in the 80s when him and his father were running a local promotion in Florida. And we recently got a big follow-up to that we recorded days before Bert Prentice died. So that'll be on the next 605. It's already recorded. And edited, actually.
I mentioned that I had just spoken to him because he had called me, and I hadn't had the occasion to talk to Bert a couple of years on the phone because I haven't done any shows. And, it's not like there was any heat, but we just didn't have occasion to talk. But then I got a call from him, and I said, well, I'm bad about calling people back. But this was before a lot of my chaos started going on recently. I said, I'm going to call Bert back because he said, I want to ask you about a date. And So I called him back, and I guess they're running an event at one of the casinos down around Memphis the day after my birthday, September 18th, is what he was asking about. So I told him, I explained, I said, Bert, that's the day after my birthday, but even though I've pretty much, curtailed live events because of all this shit, but I didn't want to leave you hanging. He said, I perfectly understand. And then because it was known that he had cancer quite a while back, and it was in remission, or he had beaten it, or whatever, the proper term is. And then he told me on this phone call, he said, well, I'm not, spreading this around publicly, but I don't know whether he said his cancer had returned, whether it was the same thing, or he had cancer again. And I said, oh, no. Oh, and he said, no. And this was his exact words of what spooked me so bad. He said, no, it's not like that. He said, it's a slow moving type of thing. And he used these exact words. He said, my death is not imminent. If he was planning for a few more years, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever. He said, I've, reconciled myself with it, and we're moving on. I said, well, that's great, Bert. I said, listen, I can't do this one, but if you're doing Lawler's 50th anniversary show or something, put me down the first fucking time or whatever. We'll talk. Okay. And 3 weeks later, I hear he passed away. So that was not good either. But Bert was he was a very entertaining guy to be around. And he knew his shit as far as the wrestling business and how to get people in the building to see whatever the fuck he could put together to show them, however good it may be or not.
I have a hard drive somewhere that I don't know if the person will want me to attach his name to this just because of the bootlegging aspect of it, but someone gave me a hard drive of every episode of Ozark Mountain Wrestling.
That was another one. The Headbangers went out there. I'm trying to think.
Mick Foley, obviously Colorado Kid was the big star, but used a lot of the guys that were either from Smoky Mountain or Memphis. Anyone in that part of the country, Bert was running and he had TV, so he used them.
I can't remember whether it was Chaz or Glenn of the Headbangers, because after Smoky Mountain closed down, they went to, and Ozark Mountain was it Missouri or Arkansas based?
Oh, I don't remember now.
I think it was Arkansas. But they called me sometime later, like, well, we're out here in Arkansas and Bert's gone. But anyway.
We're going to miss all these characters. Eventually there's going to be no more Carny promoters. And we're going to miss it.
There's going to be no more unique, entertaining individuals in the wrestling business. Just going to be all these fucking, oh, don't ask me to do a promo fucking guys that want to sit in the corner of the locker room with their phone and play video games.